Hi, I'm Arti, and this is the Maker's Yearbook. It is a goal-setting workbook and planner for artists, makers, and handmade business owners. This is the planner that I will be using to review the previous year, set goals for this coming year, and also to measure my progress throughout the year as well. This workbook is set up to be used very simply. You set a goal and then set 3 daily tasks, and you measure your progress. It begins with a simple introduction by Nicola Taylor, who created this workbook. It's meant to help you focus and also gives you 3 key habits that you need to follow in order to achieve any goals that you might have set. It begins with a daily habit and reviewing your progress each month. But first of all, you've got to begin by reviewing the previous year in order to learn from what you achieved and what you didn't. Personally, I used to use my sketchbook for this. Here are my small wins from 2021, and I also set some specific goals for 2022. I didn't manage to get my work into shops, but I did manage to do some in-person events in 2022 for the first time since before the pandemic. I didn't do very well monetarily, but I had a great time talking to people, getting their opinions on my work, and the Autumn Art Fair even used my work on their poster, which was a really lovely surprise when the promotional material arrived in my inbox. I also managed to create a couple of collections of artwork and ended the year with a few Christmas markets. Then, to make up for not getting any cooking chart or foodie commissions, I did get several pet portrait ones, which was also on my goals list. The biggest task on that list, and one which I did achieve, was closing down my silk painting business. I began it in 2013, 2014, and then ran it doing commissions, doing trade fairs, doing markets, all the way up until the pandemic. And then between Brexit and the pandemic, it was just no longer viable to run it. So I'll miss it, but it had to go. All these things need to go into these pages of the yearbook, where it's asking you to really think about what went well for your business, what didn't work, what worked personally and what didn't. But it also takes into account your physical and mental health, which is impacted by your business, and also to think about the best and worst thing about it. And then you've got to have a think about your numbers, because at the end of the day, that is what the business is about, right? The next page I'm not too bothered about, even though I am building my audience. I do find that looking at these numbers makes me stressed out, but the numbers and the figures about the sales and the profit of my actual business, I did have to do some research and look at my Excel sheets and figure out what it actually was. The questions about my product range, in fact, I have been asking myself for quite a long time. So I am in the process of changing some of them based on the feedback that I've got, both from retailers as well as from people in my actual craft markets. Speaking of which, there's a whole craft market review right here, and I really had to face up to the fact that most of my markets were not profitable. I will not be doing the art markets again, the art fairs again this year, because even though I enjoy making collections, it really didn't go so well. I used Nicola's free online craft fair profitability tracker in order to figure out whether it was actually profitable or not, and I will only be repeating the profitable ones and finding similar markets to do. I'd have to tell my shareholders, of which there are none, that my business was not all that successful this year. But it's a new dawn, a new day, a new year in order to achieve more things. Nicola has set up this little plan of how to look at the new year, to make an annual plan, a little bit of help getting you started with your plans, goals, and ambitions. She gives a little reminder to set goals that are specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time-bound. We have to remember that Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither will our businesses be. It's a slow game, but a long-term one. I started my current art business in the pandemic when other work died out and I finally had time to draw. I need to really think about and reevaluate what I want from this business. What is my biggest dream for 2023? I actually do not know. I do know the next steps to get to my dream though, which is consistent work, making more art, and being focused. There is a basic strategy outlined here though, increasing your customers and increasing your sales. Now, these are not something that you have control over, but you can do a little bit of research. Figure out, what do I know about my customers? What do I already know about when and why they purchase my products, and where they can be found online and offline? The other questions that she's asking are there obvious places to find more people that I'm not already trying? Which new markets will I enter and what obstacles will I face? Fortunately for me, I have kept notes about most of my markets in my bullet journal, so I just need to go through all of this and find the answers. Getting into shops and wholesale is not part of my plan for this year, so this page is a bit irrelevant to me. But this one is entirely relevant because I need to go through that craft fair list and decide which ones I will reapply to and which new ones I want to do as well. There's a fair amount of focus on actual revenue and actual business income numbers, but rather than set arbitrary numbers, I'm going to focus on reducing my expenses, making new products, and figuring out what sells and what doesn't. Leading on from that, the next couple of pages are very useful because it is helping me figure out my social media strategy a little bit. Answering questions, building trust, community, myself, my work, and also, very importantly, deciding what I'm going to talk about for the entire year in my email marketing. It's something I decide on the fly and it would be useful to have a plan. The other brilliant page is this blogging page. I do have a blog, but I rarely post on it. And this one is giving me the opportunity to plan ahead so that I'm not like fumbling around for ideas about what to write and also when to put it in. I can also schedule an actual date for this. And it would give me 52 ideas, one per week. As I said, social media numbers stress me out, so I'm going to ignore this page. But my goals for 2023 are very simple. I'm going to draw daily, or at least 6 times a week. I'm going to do a no-buy for art materials, revive my Etsy shop, and focus on my mental health. Now, this is the part of the workbook, the 2023 planner, which is going to help me achieve those few simple goals. It begins, of course, with an overview of the year and a tracker where you can actually follow your progress throughout the year. I actually really like the design of this planner where they start each month with an inspirational quote to keep you motivated, I think. The colors are very pleasing and I also do like the illustrations. I'm not sure whether she did them herself or she commissioned an illustrator to do them. Let's have a look at April as a random example. It begins with a brain dump worksheet, which is a great idea to just like dump all your ideas and then pick and choose what you want to actually work on. Followed by deciding your most important goal, smaller steps, and of course, self-care is super important. This next page is a reminder of the things you need to keep in mind when you're running a business. Your bills, your expenses, your sales that you need to make in order to meet those expenses. I really like that there's a month overview at the beginning of each month because I don't want to be flipping back to the beginning of the planner. You'll notice that April begins with the 3rd, which is a Monday. This planner actually runs from a Monday to a Sunday, so every spread has a full week on it. It doesn't just skip to the next month just because the first falls on a Saturday. This format is very pleasing to me because I've been using bullet journals for quite a few years. I think I started in 2018 and this was the first journal that I had. I started off in the traditional way with an index and the monthly pages and a tracker and everything, and I even went so far as to do some doodles on the first page and make it kind of pretty looking, but it soon devolved into just lists and sort of basic stuff that I just needed to do every week. I very quickly abandoned the pretty pages and just went with the practical stuff. It became my be-all, end-all notebook, as it were. I put even my personal stuff into this notebook. I used to add all my events, any classes that I took, I would put notes in there. It just became really, really simple and really easy to manage. Since then, I've actually begun to use a combination of Asana, Clockify, and Google Calendar to help me with my planning in addition to this notebook, so that if I lose it, I don't lose everything. This one is actually now my current notebook, and I will continue to use it for my book design work and anything that's not related to my actual art business. The Maker's Yearbook will be mostly for that kind of stuff. Now, back to the planner. It just continues with a daily planner as they normally do, followed by 2 pages that I think are very important, which is a month-end review, reviewing your money, your customers, and very importantly for me with my goals, my health and well-being, and any lessons that I've learned from whatever I've done that month. The month ends with a neat little notes page where you can put whatever you need to, obviously followed on by the next month and the next month and so on, until you get to the end of the planner, which is December, where you have the brain dump, the basic planner, the month-end review, followed by a couple of pages of notes, and that is the end of the planner. You would then have to buy a new planner in order to redo the entire process for the next year. This planner is generally done by pre-orders and then they only print if they receive a certain number of orders, but there is a PDF version available to download. Now, while I set the scene for some meditative introspection and fill in all my goals that I've just told you about into my planner, here's another video for you to go and watch. And there are a whole bunch of other videos that I've made over the past couple of years that you can go and binge watch if you like. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!